And if you're planning on going to America anytime soon, then listen up, because I've just been sent in a story to where a European tourist has gone on holiday in America and has since been detained and is being locked up in one of the detention centers. Her name is Jessica Broach, and she's been detained by ICE since around the 2nd of February of this year, all because they wrongfully think that she is an illegal migrant. But obviously, she's a German tourist, so her family has been since made aware of this and been trying to get her out and released. The sheer fact that something like this is even able to happen just shows to me a very obvious error in the system. But in case it's not obvious to you already, innocent people are going to be held up in this mess. It doesn't even have to be someone that's even trying to seek refuge in America. Tourists, literal tourists are being held up in this mess. Now, from what I've since heard, she got detained after traveling out to Tijuana with a friend and quite simply just got stopped at the border and taken to a detention camp, all because she did not have her papers, more specifically, I think her passport. So if you are planning on going to America, specifically in the next 4 years, I'd say carry your passport freaking everywhere. I know it's something that most travelers don't like to do. I know for a fact when I go on holiday, I'm not traveling with my passport because why would I do that? But bro, you literally better safe than sorry at this point.
Okay, so the new American tourist experience is: don't leave your hotel room without government documents or risk getting detained. Got it. A German citizen from a NATO ally locked in a detention camp because she went on a day trip without her passport. That's not border security. That's a system that's completely lost the plot. And the advice is now carry your passport everywhere, like you're traveling through a checkpoint zone, not visiting theme parks. The countries America used to lecture about civil rights are now issuing warnings about America. The irony is genuinely painful.
I'm a US citizen living in Mexico, so I'm very used to seeing travel warnings like this from the US government, warning their citizens about crime and other things that are occurring in different states throughout Mexico. But did you also know that countries all over the world have travel advisories warning their citizens about traveling to the United States? Like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, France, the UK all have travel warnings warning their citizens about traveling to the US. And they cite things like gun violence, police brutality, mass shootings, even lack of access to healthcare. Canada straight up tells its citizens to familiarize themselves with active shooter drills. New Zealand does the same.
Active shooter drills. As tourist preparation advice, pack your bags, book your flights, practice hiding under a table. That's the 2025 American Vacation Checklist. And here's the deep part nobody talks about. American children have been doing these drills since kindergarten. They normalized it so completely that they forgot how absolutely insane it looks from the outside. The rest of the world never normalized it. And now they're looking at America going, we're good, thanks. You can't blame them for that.
Imagine you're a family getting ready to go on vacation and you're reading about active shooter drills so you're prepared while on vacation. Meanwhile, American kids have been doing that since they've been 5 years old. So maybe instead of clutching our pearls about travel outside of the US, we should take a long, honest look at the very real dangers happening in our backyard, because the rest of the world already is.
The White House was recently bragging that border crossings are at an all-time low.
They're bragging. Actually celebrating this, bro. Fewer people crossing the border because nobody wants to come is not a win. That's the restaurant owner celebrating empty tables because at least nobody's complaining about the food. The goal was never to make America unwanted, but somehow that became the result, and somehow that became the talking point. You can't build a wall around your economy and expect the economy to thrive. That's just not how any of this works.
Why is that? Oh, that's right. Because no one's coming to fucking America anymore. You know, our current government isn't exactly the friendliest to people that don't speak the King's English. It's not just illegal border crossings that are down. International tourism in the United States has fallen like a fucking rock. In March, overseas arrivals dropped by more than 11% compared to the year before. Western Europe saw a 17% decline. The Americas down 24%. Flights that used to be packed are now running real fucking light. The reason behind these declines is pretty fucking simple. The global perception of the United States has changed recently since the election.
This is the sentence that actually matters here. Perception is the product in tourism. People don't visit countries. They visit the idea of countries. The feeling of safety, welcome, excitement. When that feeling breaks, it breaks fast and it breaks hard. Western Europe down 17%. The Americas down 24%. These aren't people who hate America. These are people who loved America, who saved up for years to visit, and now they're choosing Portugal, Japan, Colombia instead. Once a generation of travelers builds new habits and new bucket lists, you don't automatically get them back. That's the part nobody's calculating into those GDP numbers.
His threats, along with horror stories of travelers to the States, have led European nations, along with Canada, to issue travel advisories to the United States. These tourists no longer feel safe or welcome by our current government. This isn't just about the loss of tourism. Those tourists bring jobs, and those jobs are going to be lost, along with tips, and the businesses are going to struggle. Some of them are going to close. Cities like Orlando, New York, Las Vegas are already feeling the effects of the lack of travelers. If this trend continues, the U.S. could lose up to $180 billion in GDP by June of 2026. It's not just immigrants that aren't coming anymore. No one wants to come here.
Air Transat suspending all flights to US as of this spring. Air Transat is canceling its last 2 flights into Florida as of this spring, suspending all of its business into the United States. The airline is canceling its flight to Fort Lauderdale and Orlando for the 2026 summer season, with a gradual end of operation in the spring, spokesperson Maria Valliere said Thursday. Flights to Orlando from Montreal will end on May 3rd, along with flights to Fort Lauderdale from Quebec City and Montreal starting in May and June.
Orlando is losing direct flights from Canada. Disney World, Universal, the theme park capital of the world, is becoming harder to reach from one of its biggest tourist markets, WestJet cutting Nashville, LA, San Francisco. These aren't fringe destinations. These are iconic American cities that built entire economies around international visitors. And the quote that says it all: demand for Latin America and Caribbean remains strong, meaning travelers aren't staying home. They found somewhere else to spend that money, somewhere that feels a little more welcoming.
Air Transat previously had as many as 2 flights a day to Florida. The decision on whether flights will resume to Florida next fall and winter will be determined at a later date, Valliere said. She noted the airline's presence in the U.S. had been marginal, representing only 1% of Air Transat available seat kilometer capacity for the summer. Only 2 of the airline's 67 destinations are located in the U.S. in Fort Lauderdale and Orlando, favored destinations for Canada's snowbirds and those attending theme parks like Walt Disney World. Earlier this week, Canadian airline WestJet announced it was cutting service to 10 U.S. cities because of a decline in demand. Flights out of Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Winnipeg to destinations including Nashville, Los Angeles, Tampa, and San Francisco were being dropped. We saw a notable decline in transborder travel demand throughout 2025, WestJet spokesperson Julia Kaser told the Vancouver Sun. She noted there was no indication this trend would change in the future. Demand for Latin America, Caribbean, transatlantic, and trans-Pacific destinations remains strong, Kaser said. Air Transat said it made a choice in order to make full use of its resources. This adjustment is part of a proactive management of our capacity as we focus our efforts on market where Air Transat is best positioned and that allow us to optimize the deployment of our resources, Valliere wrote in an email. What do you guys think about this? Please like, please comment, please follow, please buy Canadian, please buy from EU, please buy from UK, and please buy Aussie too. Thank you.
Lately, I've had a lot of people commenting on this post. Let me explain, because one of the things I say is be careful of like 9th and 10th Avenue, and I want to explain why. Generally speaking, when you come to New York, everything you want to do mainly is like around this Times Square area. There's like Rockefeller Center, Empire State Building. It's all within this like 20 block radius, I would say, 30 blocks, 20 blocks, because up there is Central Park. And the farther you head east, the more it's like residential and businesses. But the farther you head west, you're getting more towards the highway. There's a lot of action over here, a lot of people in and out of the city. For example, over here, it's a lot of bridges and tunnels, and the homeless like to be where there's no people. And same in Port Authority, especially when it's cold out. The homeless like to hang out here so they can be warm. And for a lot of you that are just coming to see like the bright lights and, you know, New York City, you're not going to be used to seeing like homeless. If you look over here, this is 8th Avenue. Here's homeless services. A lot of people hang out here. There's also a bunch of churches on 9th and 10th Avenue. A lot of homeless hang out at the churches. And then there's also the Salvation Army over here. And most of you guys from rural America are thinking, oh, Salvation Army, discount clothes, let's go thrifting. But no, this is like the real Salvation Army, like soup kitchens and Thanksgiving dinner for the homeless kind of places. It's also called Hell's Kitchen for a reason. This is where a lot of crime used to happen not that long ago. So there are things that still happen. So for those of you that are living in this fantasy world that New York City is all shining and bright and all this stuff, there is another reality to the city that people don't realize. So that's why I say, if you're going to stay around Times Square, stick around Times Square area, stay away from the west side of Times Square.
I believe America now was in capital letters at the top of my search bar as soon as I opened TikTok, and apparently a lot of other people's too. And I am traveling Addie, so I have some advice for you. I have some suggestions on places that you can go. I just got done snowboarding, so this is why my hair looks like this. As US citizens, we can very easily go to Canada, and we can also very easily go to Mexico. From Mexico, we can go for 6 months, but from within the United States, you can apply for temporary residency. There are some financial requirements associated with that, so that could be a little bit of a hiccup for some people for the temporary residency, but either way, you can go for 6 months. You can do that from within the United States, or you can do it from within Mexico. You can extend it up to 5 years, which at point you can apply for permanent residency or citizenship. So those are really great options for you that are really, kind of close to here. Other really good options are the countries of Albania and Georgia. As US citizens, we can just go to either of those for an entire year. They're not part of the EU. They're not part of the Schengen zone. I don't say that correctly. I know that. Because of that, we can go there for a year. We don't have the 90-day limitation. Anyway, between all those options that I just gave you, it very easily gets us to 2028 when we're supposed to have another election.
She mapped out a 4-year exit strategy, country by country, visa by visa, until the next election, Albania for a year, Georgia for a year, Mexico for 6 months. This is a middle-class American woman doing asylum math. And the wild thing is, she's not panicking. She's calm, logical, practical, which somehow makes it more unsettling than if she were screaming, when normal people start planning 4-year escapes. That's not a political opinion, that's a signal.
We have some major news right now. Ecuador has filed a formal letter of protest against the United States at the U.S. Embassy in Ecuador after ICE agents tried to enter the consulate, the Ecuador's consulate in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is significant. Ecuador posted this on its Twitter account, essentially saying that ICE agents tried to enter the consulate in Minneapolis, probably just because they were targeting people of Hispanic descent. And so they were like, why not just enter a foreign country's consulate? But here's the thing. It is illegal for federal agents to enter a foreign country's consulate or embassy. That's technically foreign soil. And so now you have the embassy, this consulate, sending a formal letter of protest to the U.S. Embassy in Ecuador saying that it better not happen again, essentially, that this can't continue to happen. You can't have ICE agents trying to forcibly enter another country's consulate or embassy. Pretty significant news right now, so spread the word. Follow along for all the news you need to know about.
ICE tried to walk into a foreign consulate. That's not aggressive enforcement. That's an international incident. Consulates are foreign soil. That's not a technicality. That's foundational international law that's been respected for centuries. Ecuador had to send a formal diplomatic protest letter over something that should never have needed a letter. The scariest part isn't that it happened. It's that it happened casually, like someone just didn't know or didn't care. And both options are equally terrifying when we're talking about federal agents.
I regard the United States as the most lawless and dangerous country in the world by far.
And with that being said, I'm going to say this plainly, without sugarcoating it. If you're thinking about visiting the United States right now, don't. This is not a travel advisory vibe. This is a reality check. The climate here is volatile, unpredictable, charged. People are getting pew-pewed in places that are supposed to be normal. Schools, grocery stores, highways, churches, synagogues, neighborhoods. And yes, even white people are getting caught in it. No one is exempt. But let's be honest for a second. If you are a person of color, if you are black, if you are brown, if you are yellow, you are not just visiting a country. You are playing Russian roulette and entering a risk zone. That's not hyperbole. That's basic math. Between political extremism, racial hostility, gun culture with zero breaks, an administration using Gestapo-like law enforcement, and a Republican-led government pouring gasoline instead of water, the margin of safety is razor thin. One wrong interaction, one wrong assumption, one wrong place at the wrong time. And before anyone says, but it's not everywhere, that's the point. You don't know where it will be next. Vacations are supposed to be relaxing. Sightseeing should not involve hypervigilance. You should not need an exit strategy on vacation. So if you're abroad, stay abroad. If you are planning a trip here, redirect it. Your money, your joy, your safety.
Short but devastating, and she's right. Vacations are built on one feeling: Safety, the moment people have to run risk assessments based on their skin color, their nationality, their phone's search history before visiting a country. That country is already lost. Tourism isn't just hotels and flights, it's trust, and trust is the hardest currency to earn back once you've spent it. The world isn't anti-America, it's just choosing peace, exactly like she said.
Put it somewhere that actually values all three. This isn't anti-America. This is pro-life, pro-safety, pro-reality. Protect yourself. Choose peace over passport stamps. And do not let anyone guilt you into ignoring what you can clearly see. That's the warning.
So we arrived in Atlanta from our Virgin flight, and we were sat by the gates for our flight to Miami, which, you know, American Airlines, quite a reliable airline, and everyone's phone started going off, and then everyone's notification said flight delayed till 8 a.m. the next morning. Basically, they said, on the flight over, the plane lost one of its engines, so they're going to need to fix that overnight because this isn't a American Airlines base. It's not looking good. We're not quite sure what we're going to do yet. We're in a queue.
Yeah, we're in a queue, and hopefully they'll tell us at the front of the queue what we can do.
Just in case no one's told you today, it is literally now or never, by the way. The United Kingdom have now officially warned their citizens, have warned us to not travel to the United States, and if we do, to be prepared of the heightened risk posed by the border and the new Trump administration. Historically, this has never been done by the United Kingdom and the United States, besides literally during 9/11 and the previous world wars. This is, of course, days after British, German, and other European tourists have also been detained for days, weeks at a time at the border. This is, of course, weeks after Trump has basically appeased Putin and has agreed to be a bystander to the invasion of Ukraine and practically any other European country that Putin has his eyes set on. I absolutely hate saying this as your friend from across the pond, but there's going to be a point where we are not going to have any international influence to help you guys because Trump is literally making that quite literally impossible. He's isolating America. How does nobody see that? To the extent that they will confiscate your phone at the border, and if you have anything that is negative towards Trump, they will literally ban you from the USA. So if you're an American watching, you really have to have the fight in your belly right now because it is truly now or never. I literally cannot say that any louder.
Well, here we are. It's Friday, and we are just literally minutes away from the border to Canada as we flee the US. Who would have thought at age 60 that this would be our day and our plan and our actions? And I know fleeing sounds dramatic and like something from a movie, but it's really true. We just feel so scrutinized and so silenced and so being portrayed as enemies within and being portrayed as domestic terrorists because we're standing up for what we believe in this country and what we believe is being violated and is going into an authoritarian regime, and is in it actually, and has been since he hit the ground running in January, the day he was inaugurated. It's really frightening, and it's really unsettling, and there's just no peace in that the folks that follow him and voted for him are just being barraged with this indoctrination by this cult of personality to believe through just repeated messaging that Democrats are the enemy within, his words, that all Democrats across the board are domestic terrorists, again, his words, that this straw man that they're building with Antifa to give them something to be outraged about, that they feel they need to take up some sort of vigilantism to seek out and seek retribution on their own. It's just whipping up this frenzy of hatred, just like 80 years ago in Germany in the 40s, when the authoritarian regime there and their leader were messaging out the same things about how races within their country were the enemy within, were animals, were rats that needed to be exterminated. Just like this guy said a few weeks ago that Democrats were just a bug on our shoulder that just needs to be squashed and swatted away. There's so many parallels in history that are being seen all over again. And who would have thought here in the 21st century, years, hundreds of years after a civil war, after fighting for freedom in the 1940s and the 1950s, to keep authoritarian regimes like this out of our country and off of our soil, that somebody would rise up from within our country with no political experience and whip up this frenzy of ego and power to try to, again, divisively create this enemy that is anti-Christian, because that's a real trigger and that's a real knee-jerk to a lot of his followers, that they're trying to destroy us and they're trying to destroy our values. When you look at it, and they're destroying the values in their actions because of who they are. Anyway, here we are. It finds us crossing over into Canada for a few weeks to get a taste of what freedom and diversity and friendship and everything is like. Again, something that we have lost and forgotten since January, with years to go in this regime.
He's 60 years old, crossing into Canada, calling it fleeing. And the devastating part isn't the politics, it's the grief in his voice. This isn't someone celebrating leaving, this is someone mourning a country they loved. Who would have thought at 60 this would be our plan? That line hits harder than any statistic, harder than any GDP projection, because it puts a human face on what all these numbers actually mean. Behind every canceled flight, every travel warning, every detention story, there's a person who didn't want things to turn out this way, and that's the part worth sitting with.
Oh my God. 10 months. It seems like a lifetime. But anyway, we'll go there. We'll check it out for 3 weeks. We'll reevaluate, see what the plan is. If it's longer, if it's extended, if it's semi-permanent, I don't know. But here's where we're at.
So that's where we are. A 60-year-old fleeing to Canada, a German tourist in a detention camp, allied nations writing travel warnings, Orlando losing flights, $180 billion on the line. None of this was inevitable. It was built, decision by decision, and now the receipts are coming in. Tourism runs on trust, and trust runs on how a country treats people when nobody's watching. Right now, the world is watching, and they're booking tickets somewhere else. The question isn't whether this is happening, the numbers confirm it is. The question is whether the people who caused it will ever admit the cost. Drop a comment. Do you think international tourism to America recovers? Or is this a permanent shift in how the world sees the US? Like, share, subscribe, because we're just getting started on this story, and something tells me the next chapter isn't going to be any lighter.